What a brutal way to lose a playoff game at home that was winnable for the Philadelphia 76ers. Sixers drop Game 4 at home and now head to New York for Game 5, trying to avoid elimination in the elimination game as the Knicks take a 3-1 series lead, riding the back of their superstar in Jalen Brunson. Welcome to the PHLY Sixers postgame show presented by Coors Light. On the road with Rich Hofmann, I'm Devon Givens. We are broadcasting live from Wicked Wolf here on 12th and Chestnut, downtown Center City of Philadelphia, where the place was live. They were into the game. Everyone knew this was going to be a tough one and a close victory at the end for either team. But the way things played out, it seemingly looked like the Sixers could, in fact, once again win this basketball game. But because of some things that keep popping up, a normal theme for the Philadelphia 76ers against the New York Knicks, and quite honestly, during the regular season, rebounding once again a big part of the loss this afternoon. They trail again 3-1. They go to New York on Tuesday for Game 5. And man, we can get into all of that on Monday's show as we get ready for Tuesday's game. But here and now in the moment, this was a bad loss, obviously, for the Philadelphia 76ers, Rich.
Devon, the last two games, I think officiating hijacked the conversation in the post-game discourse. I think Sixers fans were upset Game 2. Knicks fans were upset Game 3. You're not going to hear about the refs from either of us tonight. You know, there are a million calls during a game. Frankly, Joel got a pretty decent whistle. I think they were all fouls on Hartenstein, but no, the refs were not the story here. The story was the Knicks, their best player, played a spectacular game. Meanwhile, the Sixers' two best players faded as the game went on. And I am so tired of saying this, man. The tougher team won. And the Sixers are not the tougher team. Like, come on. They finished with, I'm looking at it now, they finished with 35% offensive rebounding. Basically, the Sixers in the first half of this game did a really good job on the glass. And then, at the end of the game, while the Knicks went small, they went with OG Anunoby defending Embiid, Precious Achiuwa because Hartenstein was in fouls, and they just battered the Sixers on the defensive glass at the end of the game. And look, the Sixers offense, we're going to talk about that. Believe they didn't score on 10 straight possessions in the fourth quarter. But I guess I would start by just saying, like, man, I'm sick of this. Like, I'm sick of watching this era of Sixers basketball have games like this where they're not the tougher team. They're not the smarter team down the stretch. Even, you know what I was thinking of down the stretch of the game? I was thinking of Game 4 against the Celtics last year where Harden completely bails them out. But, you know, Horford's getting rebounds. The Celtics are tougher. And I'm just so unbelievably sick and tired of it. So that is my kind of long-winded way of saying the right team won today. The tougher team won.
They absolutely did, because the Sixers looked like they were in control. Folks, by the way, the Sixers were up twice in this game by 10 on two separate occasions, and New York just kept chipping away, finding a way, hitting a big three-pointer, getting an and one to cut it to 7. And then they just seemed like they made the smarter plays. When you talk about the toughness and all of that, the smarter basketball team.
They were mentally tougher, too.
Mentally tougher just came out with this victory on this Sunday night. They were out-hustled. They were outclassed. They were out everything. Outscored, obviously, at the end by 5 to lose this basketball game. And the 76ers did not score on the final 10 possessions, as we heard during the broadcast. And when I went back to look, that was 5 minutes, under 5 minutes. They did not score a field goal on their end of the floor. Opportunities for defensive rebounds to go the other way. Missed layups at the rim. I counted 3. A Tyrese Maxey drive, missing a layup right at the rim. Rolled off the lip of the rim first. Then you get Nick Batum on the baseline, decent pass, attacks the rim, gets stuffed by Josh Hart, where he landed on his back. I mean, he absolutely obliterated the ball and Batum on that play. And then you also had another one from Tobias Harris going up weak instead of finishing strong at the rim. And he looked decent in the first half for what Tobias Harris has normally given them, and then for them to again not be able to score the basketball, collect those those defensive rebounds. They had 3 on 1 possession to allow the New York Knicks to score the basketball again, and it was a close when they was down 5, then they would be down 3, then when they were down 1, and then it would go right back because what happens again? The tougher team, the team that's out hustling the other team, giving themselves an opportunity. And I got to give Precious Achiuwa credit.
He was great.
Because we thought that they would not be able to win those minutes with him out there on the floor. He played smart, he played under control, and he gave his team a chance. He had some bad plays. Trying to finish at the rim, that's just not what he does. But all in all, he had a key block on Joel Embiid in that final 40 seconds where Embiid did not take that short jumper. He drove to the basket, trying to get an easier finish and maybe even a foul. You can question that right there, but Precious Achiuwa got the block to prevent him from making that shot. Some tough shots from a lot of people. Kelly Oubre, bad three-point attempts.
Awful.
Kelly Oubre left on the shot clock. Tyrese Maxey, bad shots there towards the end in the fourth quarter. Same thing. Joel Embiid was fatigued. We can get into Nick Nurse later to see if that was a bad idea to not take him out at the start of the fourth.
It's a huge part of the game.
Yeah, I actually had a question while we were sitting here with 2 minutes to go in the third. Just so many things went against the 76ers. And not only was it because New York did a good job of forcing and dictating things, but also because the 76ers did not force and dictate themselves. And you got a hat tip, if I'm going to call out Precious Achiuwa and OG Anunoby, as Rich says, guys, gals, Sixer fans, Jalen Brunson was phenomenal.
Best player on the floor
in this
by
game.
A lot.
A new playoff career
Terrific.
high 47, a new franchise playoff record for the New York Knicks and Jalen Brunson with his 47 points. He was easily the best basketball player on the floor between the two teams.
Well, and that's why he really screwed up in those 2 MSG games, because he stunk in both of those games by his standards, and at some point, he's going to get his. And frankly, I thought the Sixers defense was not even that bad on him. He was just, terrific, and obviously he's got the great footwork. He's got the Joel Embiid trait where when he does get the foul, he got Tobias up in the air on the one.
Yep.
He's excellent touch on finishing those plays. Those might be the 2 best guys in the league at finishing those. He was spectacular. I mean, Devon, I'm looking at his stats right now. 47 points, 10 assists, 1 turnover.
1 turnover. How many minutes?
In 43 minutes. I mean, he sat at the beginning when he bumped knees with Lowry of the fourth quarter. But look, that's the story, right? Jalen Brunson was great, and some of that is you got to just shake his hand. He was terrific. But also the defensive rebounding and the Sixers, just their offense completely falling apart. And, Devon, when we look back, I thought the first quarter the Sixers played tonight, even though Brunson had a nice quarter, I think he had about 10 or 12 points in the quarter, I thought they were excellent all quarter. They had the right defensive rotations. They were kind of pre-switching those high ball screens, making sure Embiid was back. Lowry was doing, kind of the fun Kyle Lowry things. They were getting good shots on offense out of post-ups. Joel, great passing. Hits Tobias with a hit-ahead pass. They were only up 10. They probably should have been up a little bit more. But I think the story is, man, it's a 48-minute game. You cannot just come out that strong and not, expect the Knicks to punch back. And I just feel like at some point, the Knicks kept punching and the Sixers, they kind of let go of the rope. But, Devon, I think it all starts in the decision to play Joel Embiid. And I believe I saw Mike Lynch from Basketball Reference said this. It is the first time Joel Embiid has ever played the entire second half in his career. I don't think that's ever happened before. So, and I think the Sixers paid for that. But it comes back to, okay, Sixers have that great first quarter. They're up 27-17. The first few minutes of the second quarter, they go with Paul Reed, they go with Maxey and Tobias. And I think in 4 minutes, they scored 2 points. Tobias Harris free throws. The offense was horrendous. They didn't get one good shot. They got Maxey flailing for garbage calls. If Brunson was flailing for those, I would say they were not fouls either. You got Batum taking 30-footers from beyond the arc. You got Tobias not scoring. It was really bad. And, of course, I think I saw that Kevin O'Connor had this stat. It is the 11th postseason loss of Joel Embiid's career where he finishes with a positive plus-minus. Now, this one wasn't as bad. It was +1, so whatever. But you cannot lose his minutes, those 4 minutes, by 6 points. Like, it just... And I felt like that just infected the team's energy. They did not get good shots the rest of the quarter, and the Knicks shut them down the rest of the way.
No, it was just, again, that effort, man. Effort, very, very poor. How do you continually let that happen where you can't get to those loose balls? You don't put enough of a body on someone to make sure that you pull away. And you knew it was going to be a close game, but again, you just needed to make some runs, some sustainable runs. The Sixers in that run that they had in the third quarter to go up 10 again, missed shots there where we looked at things, Rich, in that moment and saying, that was a swing play right there for the Sixers.
Totally.
That was a swing play there for the Knicks. That was another swing play there for the New York Knicks. And it happened so many times, so often for the New York Knicks, where the Sixers just simply did not have an opportunity. Well, they had the opportunities to respond, but they didn't know how to respond. And that's what's so frustrating, because we have a lot of people to point our finger at. And I put it in there in that final 8 minutes.
It's everybody.
8 minutes.
It's everybody.
Tyrese Maxey, I needed him to come up much bigger in the moment. He has been so good through these first 3 games, including that fourth play-in. I mean, he wasn't great in the play-in game, but he really elevated his play in New York with what he did. And for him, he looked frustrated. He looked a bit confused as to how he was trying to get his shots. It didn't look like New York was doing all that differently.
I think they did a better job of not giving the Brunson switch, and a couple of those terrible possessions at the end. Like, Maxey was not aggressive enough with Brunson kind of fighting the screen that Lowry was setting or Oubre was setting, whoever he was guarding. It's bad.
Yeah. By the way, when you mention that with the Jalen Brunson going on, Jalen Brunson is not a good defender. All right?
Nobody fought.
He fought today, but he's not a good defender. And one thing that I don't want to see from the young star player in Tyrese Maxey was going up against OG Anunoby, much better defender, scored on OG Anunoby, scoring on Josh Hart. As good as the effort was from Jalen Brunson, he still cannot stay in front of Tyrese Maxey if Maxey is decisive with what he wants to do and trying to get to the basket and get his shot off. And that's what the frustrating part was for me watching Maxey and the growth that we have discussed so much with him and how good he has been in finding that matchup, no matter if it's the matchup that he wants, but he can't get it, but still deciding that I'm still going to do what I do, which is scoring the basketball, and not doing that in this game against Jalen Brunson, or even Miles McBride for that matter, when McBride was on him. We saw a couple of times we were like, just go by him.
Yeah.
Go by him. Get to your spot. You may not get to the free throw line, but you might just get the bucket. Or the pull-up jumper that we've seen him make a lot from that mid-range area. You needed so much more of that tonight. I already saw one real fast where it wasn't a super chat, but I want to address this right now when it comes to, I think it was Remo K says, Paul Reed is just not good. I like the guy, but it's time to go to someone else next year. Paul Reed was not the problem, all right? He was not the problem, Remo.
Even if he was not good, it's so much bigger than him.
And that's where it brings us back to the Tyrese Maxey piece. Those are your minutes. To be better.
Yeah.
Those are your minutes with Joel Embiid off the floor. Paul Reed was not the problem there. They could not score the basketball. It wasn't about the defense and the rebounding. It was about scoring the basketball. And Paul Reed is not the one that you're asking to score. You're asking him to do the little things and fight on the other end defensively to get a block shot, a rebound, etc. Paul Reed was not the problem. So let's not go there. There's so many other. He's way down the list.
I'm not looking at Paul Reed. Yeah.
No,
I agree with you.
No,
and look, it's rough. So Devon, let's take a step back here.
Let's take a step back
because as we have just said, and however many minutes we've been talking. That sucked.
14 minutes.
That was 14 minutes of that sucked. That was brutal. And I think the crazy thing about this season, let's take a step back. I know you didn't start with us until November, but we were talking about it, off camera. We didn't think that this Sixers team had a chance to go deep this year. Like, the front office signaled to everybody, hey, like, we're keeping our cap space for next year. They made the Harden trade in the first 2 weeks of the season.
Sure.
And, as we said, it was the trade to make a trade. Well, they didn't make that second trade yet. They were like, okay, we're going to get Buddy Hield at the deadline. By the way, Buddy Hield, DNP. CD today. Not great for the best player at the trade deadline. But again, the way that the front office has built this team this year, it's almost like they have not been trying. They haven't been. And they would argue that, hey, we're going to push in our chips next year. That's when it is. The fact that this group of players, and specifically Joel Embiid and Tyrese Maxey, had such good seasons to the point where I'm at the same element where, heading into the year, I would have thought, all right, the Sixers are going to lose. This isn't going to sting as much. No, man, this is like the same old thing.
Yeah. Especially when you look
ridiculous.
at the path.
Look
at the path that they've created for themselves. Sure, you don't want to be a 7th seed, but as much as you know this is going to be a knuckle dragger, a fight, an alleyway brawl with the New York Knicks, you go into a second round potentially against the Indiana Pacers. Yes, they had your number in the regular season, but if we walk into a playoff round, we're thinking they're going to beat that one.
They give you enough hope in the punt year. It's crazy.
And then Milwaukee, their 2 stars are injured, and you don't know what you're going to get from them on any given night. You have to, again, take advantage of your opportunity and situation, and they did not do that here with this series through the first 4 games.
They didn't.
Enough to pick up 2 victories at least through 4.
They didn't. By the way, I think the Sixers are getting outscored by like 4 points or something in the series. They are down 3-1. They cannot win close games in this series. And we've seen it before, man. We've seen it before. And it's unfortunate. We've seen them not be able to run good offense down the stretch. I think that also, as poor as the defensive rebounding is, their inability to run good offense down the stretch, like either whether it's the staggered ball screen we're talking about, the double drag, or they were getting good offense in the third quarter by just running a pin down and getting Embiid at the free throw line. And, whether, he got Hartenstein in foul trouble, whether he was able to find open shooters, it felt like there were way too many possessions at the end where Joel is hanging out in the corner. But I think part of that stems back to Nick Nurse didn't take him out in the second half, right? And we talked about, are they going to be able to buy him a couple of minutes? And, there are a lot of games where people say, oh, man, you should have been able to play Joel the entire game. There is a little bit of a risk with that, and I think the Sixers got burned by it. And it's just the whole thing is disappointing, And I don't think they're completely out of the series yet. Like, the Knicks have not proven that they can blow this team out. But it's going to be really tough sledding now. And they had a golden opportunity. They were playing well in the first quarter. Had a terrible second quarter, but still were up at halftime because of kind of some ridiculous Maxey shots at the end of that first half. They have the 10-point lead in the third quarter. Joel's throwing the ball all over the court. Although, in fairness, I didn't know on a couple of those plays, were they bad turnovers or does Oubre have to catch that ball? I don't know.
The miscommunication with Tyrese Maxey on the sideline. Throwing that. You guys played enough to know how to play off of one another for that not to be an issue where you can't understand where that's going. And then they had another third turnover that we were like, what is going on here? So when I say, to Remo K, of course, Remo K, I'm not picking on you about that. I'm just pointing out that Paul Reed is way down the list. And yes, even though the Paul Reed stuff, as I saw you said, I'm not sure why he is making it seem like I'm placing the blame solely on Reed. First of all, you can address me individually. I did with you, and me and you are cool, so we can have the conversation. I'm just pointing out that Paul Reed was not the problem because, again, they were up by 10 twice. And in those Paul Reed minutes, your other all-star was on the floor and could have done some stuff. No, you're right, Coach Lowell Ricketts, that he was not great in his time out there on the floor. But that's not the issue in today's game where I am focused on that at all right now when others, Oubre, Harris, and so many others that are way down the list where I'm not even focused on the Paul Reed minutes per se with him out there as the issue. It's more of what happened, yes, while he was on the floor, but the other person that was on the floor was your other all-star and needed to do something to make those plus minutes in his time on the floor. That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying you're placing the blame solely, but I wouldn't. He's not even in my notes here to worry about Paul Reed this afternoon for what he did at all. Not at all.
So where do you fall on that Joel game?
I thought that he settled down at one point where I was like, okay, he's playing under control. Thought he was good offensively enough. A couple of forced shots there where I didn't think he needed to take a few of those shots, but because of the offense, he didn't trust anybody else to shoot the basketball. So what he does oftentimes is, if they are not going to make shots, I'm going to take a tougher shot because I think, for me, I have a better shot at making the shot. Sometimes you like that.
Yeah.
Sometimes you don't. And he got away from it. And then with the fatigue, you and I talked about it. One of my cousins texted me and said the guy is fried right now. He can't do anything. So, yeah, you know, it's just one of those things where he's out there in the bad wheel. He's doing everything that he can do. And as I look at Marsh and Lynch say, you know, say it, Devon, call him a fraud. I'm not calling him a fraud.
I'm not going to do that.
Not calling him a fraud because I thought there were opportunities for others to uplift him a little bit more in that time out there on the floor.
Well, and look, he's playing, and I hate that this is just priced into what his career is. He's playing on an extremely screwed up knee right now.
Yeah,
he's gotten it out, and he played the entire second half, which is difficult for him.
And you even mentioned it. When we talk about his impact and effect on the floor, they were afraid to go to the rim for a long time because they knew that them challenging him at the rim was just not working. Then they realized that he was a little fatigued himself. They saw that he wasn't right, and they made the better of it.
That's the reason he's the +1. And I think throughout his career, even though Joel has been disappointing offensively in his career in the playoffs, obviously has had a disappointing overall playoffs as well. The one thing that probably got underrated, even when he was hurt last year against Boston, his impact just being around the rim, like, I don't care how good these guys are as drivers, they're afraid to go at him. And, you know, OG made like one, but I bet he missed 2 or 3. And
that one that he just threw up,
that's a complete prayer, right?
He just threw it up.
Yeah. So I think the reason he ends up being a +1 at the end of the game is that he makes enough of those plays, and the Sixers get those 4-point, 5-point swings by those shots get missed. And by the way, the guy always crashes into the front row because it's so hard to score against him. And they end up getting enough of those. So that's a big deal. I loved his toughness. I loved his passing in the first half. He did hit over 5.5 assists, barely 6. But he did throw some turnovers in the third quarter. And that was, again, I don't know if that was Oubre not catching the ball. But I would say the disappointment for me is that what he has built with Tyrese Maxey this year, that two-man game, that spontaneous level of basketball where it's just so hard to guard, right? Where you can run a pick and roll, you can run Maxey off screens, you can run dribble handoffs and get back to the second and third action. I thought that was going to be much more potent in the tough moments in the playoffs, right? When a defense like the Knicks is locked in and they know what you're running, that can be kind of a very effective way to go about it, because if you had that spontaneous set, you don't know, you're kind of just reading and playing off each other, that's really difficult to guard. And I guess I'm disappointed. I know Joel was gassed that they weren't able to get anything out of that. And look, some of it is they put Anunoby on him, so maybe the Sixers went away from it because the Knicks would have been able to more easily switch that screen. But I found that disappointing because, again, like, look, 33 points in the last 2 quarters is just not enough with the firepower. And frankly, like, their shot making was incredible in Game 3.
Last 3 quarters? I mean,
last 2 quarters. Sorry,
43.
Oh, you're right. I'm looking at that wrong.
No,
sorry.
it's okay. No,
43 points, but 16 in the fourth quarter, just not enough.
And you knew this was going to be a drag out.
I know.
He had to find a way to score. To your point on that, then we'll get to our quick break. We got Super Chat we'll get to in just a minute as well. When you bring up that, when it comes to the fact that you have Embiid in their 2-man game, we thought we were at a point, though, even in a playoff game, when things get bogged down, you can go to your 2-man game to stop a break, to stop a run by the opposing team. And we did not see that enough tonight for the Philadelphia 76ers. All right, people, I know you're frustrated with this loss. It's very disappointing, a lot of things. We're frustrated a little bit too. But as we sit here and tell you, yes, you come to us to help you calm down. We're not really doing a great job of calming you down, I don't think, and rightfully so.
That's a bad loss, man.
So that's why we got to tell you that this show is presented by our good friends from BetterHelp. And a lot of us spending our lives wishing, number one, you had more time. The question is, time for what? If time was unlimited, how would you use it? Would you go for a walk along the drive here in Philadelphia? Great weather right now, so you're enjoying the sights and sound in Center City. Coming to hang out with us maybe here at this great establishment, or even just wanting to get some things off your chest after your basketball team lose a Game 4 in the fashion in which that they did. Well, if you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist and switch therapists at any time for no additional charge. Right now, I know you're a little ticked off with how things played out with your team. So if you need to do this for tomorrow, after we get together right now, we're on our own couch with the music playing and the candles burning and laying back with some water, trying to figure it all out and piece it together. Learn to make time for what makes you happy. Maybe not a playoff loss with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/PHLY Sixers today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/PHLY Sixers to get some help as you try to cope with this basketball game. Again, our show presented by BetterHelp. We also have to tell you about some other friends that we have, and that is from our great friends. Great drink that we now have as part of our station, our overall channel as PHLY Sports and PHLY Sixers, and that's Olipop, the world's first functional soda with a classic soda taste and the benefits of plant-based fiber, prebiotics, and other botanical ingredients to support gut health. Olipop is a new kind of soda with only 2 to 5 grams of sugar and just 9 grams of fiber per can. It's now available online and available in almost 30,000 retailers nationwide, including the most recent launch at all Wawa stores. You know, we all go to one spot, and that's Wawa, to get everything that we need. Well, they now have our favorite soda, Olipop. Its debut in Wawa couldn't be more of a match made in heaven. A delicious, healthy drink meets a convenience store, as we know here in the Delaware Valley, both adored by a cult following. The 2 flavors debuting right now in Wawa are classic root beer and strawberry vanilla, the 2 most popular flavors right now. But if you want to go get the the cherry vanilla, that's available. Watermelon lime, they have that one as well. Go to the website, check it out. It's a new kind of soda. Again, how important it is health-wise for you. Almost every American has some sort of relationship with soda from their childhood. I'm guilty of it as well. Rich is also. Some people grew up with drinking it all the time and then they quit. Well, a good way to come back to soda, our good friends from Olipop, go check it out. They conducted a study that showed that their Ollie Smart formulation boosts beneficial gut bacteria and generates metabolites supporting digestive and overall health. All you have to do is use the code PHLY20 for 25% off of their next Olipop order. The discount only applies to one-time orders, not to subscription orders. Olipop is sold online at drinkolipop.com plus Amazon and available in almost 30,000 retailers nationwide, including Wawa, Target, Sprouts, Wegmans, ShopRite, and GoPuff. All right, welcome back. Let's get to our super chat here that we have, and then we'll get to the conversation. We need to talk a lot more about, let's get to one of our 2 super chats here as we check in here. We'll get to Tyrese Maxey in just a second, but we got to get to one. Let's go to our first one. That is from, let's see who we have here, Coach Lowell Ricketts. We appreciate it, coaches, already. What up, Coach? New York with 13 offensive rebounds in the 4th quarter. Hartenstein didn't even play. WTF.
I agree, Coach. I agree. Just really pathetic. And how many did Joe have? Joe had 1 rebound. So the one counter to all we said. 1 offensive
rebound or 1 rebound in the 4th quarter?
He had 1 rebound in the 4th quarter, and that was a defensive rebound.
Wow.
So the one counter to all the points we made about Embiid, because I think we're trying to be measured and trying to give him some degree of sympathy, because he had to play the entire 4th quarter because they absolutely stink without him. When you look at his stats in the 4th quarter, he had 1 point. He had 1 rebound, 1 assist, and he was 0 for 5 from the field. And you're not going to win a lot of games when it's a tight game, and that's the case too. And that's been, unfortunately, a big part of his career. So I understand why some people would say, "Hey, you guys aren't being hard enough on him." It's a lot, right? It's a lot, and I think trying to process and trying to parse out who to blame, you can really look up and down the roster. But I think he certainly deserves some of that criticism for sure.
Yeah, absolutely does. Coach, hey, got to point at the big fella there too. Even when that one that you talked about looked like it should have been an offensive rebound by Embiid, he tipped it because he couldn't jump, but he can't tip it. Got to grab it, got to get a hand on it and try to squeeze the pill there. Squeeze the pill and don't let anybody get it, because not only would it have gone off of him out of bounds, it wound up going off of one of his teammates and then going out of bounds. Turnover. Well, possession still in favor of the New York Knicks. The second
you mentioned squeeze the pill, by the way, and this wasn't just Joel. Tobias Harris, who again stunk. Like it cannot come soon enough for that guy to not be a Philadelphia 76er. He is playing.
The rain is almost over.
Giving you absolutely nothing, and probably this was how it had to end, right? Like he couldn't just go out and play like normal average basketball. He's just not giving you enough. He's making $39 million, and what does he have there? He has 10 points, and part of it too, we mentioned Maxey needs to be better in those Paul Reed minutes. Hey, Tobias Harris is on the floor.
He's out there too.
Like,
you're right.
You're allowed to make a couple buckets, Tobias.
You're right.
I thought his hands were terrible. I thought Oubre's hands were terrible. There was one play where Maxey, I think, had the board, and of course Tobias then hits that one out of his hands. There was like no nick even in his way. They just all up and down the lineup. Batum really bad at squeezing the pill as well in terms of it. It was rough. And I will say, like, as much as Embiid and Maxey struggled and they deserve their blame, like, they didn't get a lot from their bench, man. I look at their bench here, and Batum, not a great game from him. You know, he did get 7 boards, but 0 for 3 from the field. Not a great game. Paul Reed, we talked about it, on the floor for 4 minutes. It was a complete nightmare. Even if it's not all his fault, not good. Campaign was the one guy on the bench that had a little pep in his step. And frankly, Devon, it's bad when I'm thinking they probably should have played Campaign more than 14 minutes.
You think?
Yeah, I mean, but it shouldn't come to that. The guys ahead of them, not bad. And also, D'Anthony Melton, we should mention, played 7 minutes. Kind of a damaging 7 minutes. Like, you mentioned one of the most unacceptable plays of the game. Lets DiVincenzo just walk to the rim on a baseline out-of-bounds play. Fouls Brunson, gives up a 3-point play. Again, nice play by Brunson, but D'Anthony, come on, you need to be better than that. And I don't think it's really D'Anthony's fault. I think it's a matter of really hard to throw somebody who has not played in a few weeks into that big of a game, that intense of a game, and the Sixers paid for it.
Yeah, I got it. I got to come back at my friend Remo K. I'm with you on this one. Damn the Bulls not trading us Drummond. He would have been so useful in this series just for rebounding alone.
It's a great point.
Remo K, we're back. We're back. Me and you together, we're back. Because we agree on that one.
Great point, Remo.
Because you're right. If he was here in those minutes, you're not forced to keep Embiid on the floor. You're right, Remo K. And rebounds are probably squeezed. And
that is so true. And by the way, the Bulls held on to Drummond instead of getting 2 second-round picks.
All so to get into the play-in game.
Well, they hosted one game, Devon. they got to beat the Hawks in the 10-9 game.
Yes.
Congratulations to the Bulls. One of the worst front offices in the league. No, but that honestly was a killer, right? And we kind of... I think we glossed over it maybe over the past month or so of the season, just because when Joel wasn't playing, like we thought, Drummond would be helpful, but he really would be helpful in this series. I am generally a Paul Reed can give you 10 minutes.
I agree.
Series guy, but Drummond, the one thing that he is great at is rebounding, and I think in this matchup that would have come really in handy.
It definitely would have. Definitely would have. Let's get to our next super chat. I ran out of space in my chat room here, so can you just throw it up on the screen, Jules, and I'll read it as it pops up, because everything about this whole game, man, I just can't believe that this thing is not tied up 2-2 after this one, because they absolutely needed this one to they needed this one to even this series up 2-2.
Good point from Alex in the chat. B-Ball Paul has that weird contract where it does not get guaranteed if the Sixers
Don't make the second round.
If they don't make the second round. But there was the old Danny Ainge
and
trick.
the rest of the contract is also guaranteed should they make it to the second round. So you're absolutely right. Davon, a.k.a. Schoolboy Beats, says Nurse is a stubborn SOB. He has to take risks. KJ greater than Toby.
Tobias has given you nothing.
I wouldn't go KJ. I would probably go Rick in that spot. But to your point, you're not wrong. Where at some point, even with his 8 rebounds, they weren't felt. Early on, you know when his rebounds were felt? In that first quarter. After that, Tobias Harris's rebounds weren't felt. They weren't impactful.
So this is a stat from Haralabob, who's like the famous NBA gambler.
Yeah.
This is so freaking embarrassing. The Knicks had a 73%. So that means every miss, they're rebounding 73% of those misses in the 32 offensive possessions that Hartenstein, I keep messing that up, was off the floor. That is embarrassing. We talked about this before the game. If they're going to play Precious, the offensive rebounding, maybe the spacing will improve. Maybe Brunson will get cleaner looks. The offensive rebounding should not get to that level. They scored 19 points off offensive rebounds. Devon, look at the score. It's up in the left corner of the screen. How many points did the Sixers lose by?
5. 5 second chance points. You know what the number was, don't you? 21-9 as I look at JP here.
That is unbelievable.
21-9. I think I have it 9. Maybe I'm giving him a few more points, more credit. 21-9. It was actually 21-8 second chance points. Sorry. I lied. Bad job by me.
So
21-8.
And what this reminds me of, by the way, this What a Pro Wants commercial is maybe the worst ad in the history of television. I like both of these guys as players, but I think everybody can agree that commercial stinks. AT&T, get rid of it. Fire whoever wrote that ad. Let's get it together. It's brutal. And look, a couple years ago, when Nick Nurse was the coach of Toronto, I remember coming into the series, everybody thought, look, the Raptors, the only way they can beat the Sixers, they're not as skilled, is by winning the possession game. They were a great offensive rebounding team. They were a great fast break team. They had to win a great forcing turnovers team. And the Sixers largely won that series because that wasn't a disaster. Like, they got beat on the offensive boards in one of the games, but for the most part, they kept it within reason. And the disappointing thing, it's the same exact thing in this series, although Jalen Brunson is a better player than anybody on that Raptors team. They just need to keep it like within reason, and it got to the fourth quarter, and it was a disaster. It was I tweeted it out. It was crisis level defensive rebounding, and that's a really tough way to lose for your fan base, man. Like, it's one thing to lose. They made threes. They got to the line a little bit more, like those type of things. No, man, you just got outworked, out-toughed, out-rebounded, and you got out-toughed by shorter dudes.
Crazy.
Brutal.
Another super chat here. MB, DB, DBF. Public service announcement. Morey is a fraud.
Okay.
There's that. So, there's that. MB.
So I will say one thing about Daryl Morey. This whole season, even last year when they had that very, I would say, disappointing offseason, even if it ends up being the right thing, not paying James Harden. But it certainly was not like a satisfying offseason as, you're waiting, trying to trade Harden, only signing guys to minimum contracts. Daryl Morey has said this entire season that it would be worth it. This cap space and this new CBA, all these other teams, maybe he's talking about a team like Phoenix who's going to pay a ton of luxury tax. It's going to be worth it. When we are the team with cap space, we are the team with a lot of assets. It's going to help us next year. It better be worth it, is all I'm saying, because you had a good enough team to make a little bit of a run here, and I can't get mad at Nico Batum that much. As much as Kelly Oubre frustrated me, after a couple of those offensive boards, he had some really bad fouls. The one where he fouled McBride on the three-point shot. I can't be that mad at Kelly Oubre. Like, he's given you a decent amount for a guy on a minimum contract. Daryl Morey was the guy that said signing these guys and keep staying patient would be worth it in the offseason. So he better be right, is all I'm saying.
Oubre finished with 19 points.
Yeah.
I thought offensively, we asked for that. He gave it to you. You needed more from elsewhere to win this basketball game. Again, we'll get to Tyrese Maxey.
Look, He gives you 19. I mean, like, he's way more involved than Tobias Harris is, So
way more.
Can't be hating on that.
Way more. Front-running fan base also checks in on the Super Chat. We got a lot of Super Chats rolling in. We appreciate Julius for sharing these with us. Effin DeRozan missing those 2 free throws against the Knicks cost them being a number 2 seed
Derek
instead
and I
of
were
being
doing
a 3rd seed.
We were doing the pod live. That was a great game. Chicago really
Overtime,
tried.
wasn't it?
Yeah, they tried. And DeRozan also, front-running fan base, also he had a good look at about a 13, 14-footer, got right into his office, just pulled the string on it. So, look, the Knicks, I will give them credit. Outside of Tom Thibodeau's incessant whining about the officials, they're tough, man. Tough team. Play hard.
He did a
Got
nice job.
A lot of respect for them.
Nice job. Coach Skip B-Ball on Twitter. Just checking my Twitter here, and my guy Skip says, Nick Nurse did a bad job today, specifically in the 3rd quarter. I would have gotten rest for Embiid when Brunson got hurt or when Hartenstein got his 5th foul. Reed versus Precious isn't about even. Embiid is dead tired. You can't get a rebound. Shaking my head, so frustrating.
I agree, and we can talk about whether he should be that gassed, but, I read his stats already. 0 for 5 from the field, 1 rebound, 1 assist. If that is what you were going to get from him in the 4th quarter, you have to sit him, unfortunately. If that's what it takes to get him to recharge the batteries, so I agree. I think in hindsight, we didn't know what the right call was in real time, but I think with hindsight and just knowing that Joel has never done that, probably should have rolled the dice. But, look, the fact that Derek had the stat, they are getting so embarrassingly outscored when Joel is off the floor in this series.
It's comical.
It's the thing, too, that's the worst part of the Sixers, because you can blame Joel for fading in the 4th quarter. You can blame him for, in some cases, not stepping up to the moment. They suck when he doesn't play. He leaves the floor in the 1st quarter. It's embarrassing. This doesn't happen to anybody else. It's ridiculous.
It's insane. That's why we were saying, hey, while Brunson is off the floor, you need to win those minutes. The Knicks are winning the minutes when Embiid is off. Sixers need to do the same thing when Jalen Brunson is off the floor. We'll get to, again, we have to talk about Tyrese Maxey, just 23 points. And this one, again, shot poorly from the field, looking for some fouls when he needed to play through that. We've seen that before. We got to talk about him a little bit. We'll get to Derek and Kyle at some point after they're done with post-game availability at the arena in South Philly. But got to tell you about our good friends from TruMark Financial Credit Union. When you join a credit union like TruMark Financial, you become a partner, a part owner, which means more profits come back to you instead of going to the shareholders. Better rates, lower fees, a better return on savings, and more flexible options with all the same digital tools and tech to make your lives easier. If you're looking to maybe get in the market for a home in the late part of the summer, in the fall, going into the winter, and you're trying to make sure you build up things and you want a good place to partner up with as a part owner here and find those really good rates when it's time to finally purchase that home, TruMark Financial Credit Union is the place for you. TruMark has local roots, headquartered in Fort Washington with 24 branches in the Philly area, like the one that I've seen often over my years being around the Upper Darby area, right there in the shopping center, right there, very convenient, very easy to navigate, even has a drive-through teller on the side of the building for your convenience as well. Becoming a member of a credit union has so many benefits over being a customer at a traditional bank. It's a total no-brainer. Head over to TruMark.com/PHLY to learn more or to find a branch near you. That's TruMark.com/PHLY, federally insured by the NCUA. We also have to get you ready for allergy season, and that's from our great friends at Rite Aid. I'm terrible when it comes to allergies. The weather is nice right now, but one thing about the spring, I don't know about all of you out there, is when things get really bad with the pollen, grass now being cut because of the season, and so much of all of that going on around me, I am just over and over, sneeze attack, sneeze attack, sneeze attack, and it's really bad for me. My daughter came home last night. Her face looks all crazy and her eyes all swollen because she forgot to take her medicine the night before, like I reminded her too. But you know what I'm going to tell her? Like I made her last night take her medicine, and I'm going to take mine tonight as well. Go to our good friends from Rite Aid. Pollen, the trees, the grasses, all of that, those symptoms, they flare you out from the pollen you have in the allergy season that's in the air, and so many other things. Sneezing for me, runny and itchy eyes, pollen allergies, which can make you feel miserable. You can even have an attitude and blame it on everybody else when it's not even their fault. Well, with all these symptoms that you have that we just laid out, sign up right now for Rite Aid Rewards emails at riteaid.com/rewards to receive email pollen alerts for your area. If pollen count is high, try to stay indoors. Maybe keep the windows closed, run the air conditioner as needed, remove your shoes when you come in the house. Anything near you, stop the tracking from pollen inside your home. Also, shower before bedtime. Wash away the pollen from your skin and the hair so you're not, number one, sneezing again and having those symptoms, but then taking it to your bed and your pillow, and then you start sneezing maybe uncomfortably throughout the night. Try a nasal rinse to help flush out your nasal passages, and 1 to 2 weeks before pollen allergies are expected to really rise high, try nasal corticosteroids, and those they're available for you, like the Rite Aid brand or Flonase or Nasacort for your nose to get into your system to prevent all of the pain that you might have. So, not enough relief? Rite Aid pharmacists have a different type of allergy medication like decongestant might be necessary. Also, you can ask your Rite Aid pharmacist for recommendations on ways to get relief during allergy season. Visit your local Rite Aid today. Stock up on allergy relief or catch up on immunizations for RSV, shingles, and more. Walk in or schedule a vaccine appointment at riteaid.com. Are you affected by allergies at all?
A little bit. Not quite as much.
Not quite as much? Yeah, it's bad, man. I'm like this and, all right, let me go wash my face. I got to go in the middle of the day. Let me wash my face, get all this stuff off of me. Maybe that helps in a little bit. Before we get to Tyrese Maxey, we're going to check in with the guys at the arena as Kyle and Derek are about to check in with us, because this is a tough one, and I want to hear what the guys had to say after hearing from the players, the head coach, maybe even getting to the visiting locker room. Who knows? Those guys are all over the place in the bowels of the arena, and we know what it's like, man. Just kind of figure it all out, get to here, get to there. And it's unfortunate because we've been through this now. What is this, playoff number 8 for Joel, or 7? I think it's 8. 7? Playoff number 7 for Joel Embiid. And
7, yeah.
It's unfortunate that this is what we have to go through here with this group. And we know the pain there.
minus 38 in 33 minutes without him in this series. Devon, I mentioned they're +4 overall in the series and somehow have lost. Like, if they just play even, they're fine. But they got their ass kicked on the boards in game 1 and in game 4 down the stretch here. But they also just, if they just play even in the 4 minutes he sits. Brutal. It's the same story too. It's Groundhog Day all over again here. It's a really tough team to watch. It's especially with everybody in the chat, I'm sure, has been here for all 7 of those years. For them to continually have to watch this, it's not great. I feel for you guys.
Yeah, our buddy Todd D. Smallwood says in the chat, Paul Reed is a minus 38.
That's
minus 38.
In 33 minutes.
In the series, but Devon says Paul Reed is not the problem. Come on, Devon. Well, here we go again.
It's more than him. I mean, I don't think he's...
No one said he's great.
He's not the solution, but...
Yeah, he's not the solution. Nobody said he's great, but you're letting off the hook there, Todney, when Tobias Harris and Tyrese Maxey are there to also score the basketball when he's on the floor with them.
So let's talk about Maxey, because I think you wanted to get to him. I will just start by saying that was a disappointing performance for him. I think, he just was not very comfortable in getting into his sets, obviously didn't shoot it quite as well. What do you think was the big issue from Tyrese Maxey in this game?
That I felt like he got away from who he has been to become what we thought he will be in this series, to help uplift them and maybe even potentially push them past the series. So as a result, he got sped up at times. He's fast, but you can be fast and also be sped up to get away from what you have dictated against the defense so much during the season and even in these first 3 games against the New York Knicks. I didn't think that he really took advantage of the opportunity when he had the matchup that he may have wanted for a brief second and then just go right at him. A couple of those 3-pointers, we both thought he settled on a couple of those 3-pointers on the looks, and then he missed a bad one wide open off of Embiid. Great pass out of a double team, which would have put the Sixers up 2 after they were down 1 there in that fourth quarter. I think it was like 92-89 and he missed it, or 90. It was 90-89 and he missed it. Would have put him up 92-90 and he missed a 3-pointer. So that one was tough. But let's go to the arena and check in with Kyle and Derek as Kyle is yelling at us in the in the chat. Kyle, we're already in a bad mood. Don't make us come back at you, man. Even though you've done a great job here covering this team. But hey, man, we're in a bad mood because of how things ultimately played out by this basketball team in the end, where the 76ers are now 3-1 in this series because a theme that has been very common between these two teams. The tougher team out-hustled the not tough team there in the end when it really mattered to come away with this victory once again, to have a 3-1 series lead for the New York Knicks.
Yeah, and look, I heard the streets are saying it's Devon's fault because he doesn't want to pin all the blame on Paul Reed. So hashtag blame Devon after that game. Obviously, you weren't out there boxing out and grabbing rebounds and what have you. And yeah, I think it's ultra frustrating specifically because this is New York's identity, right? Like you come into the series. This is the type of team they are. They're a possession valuing, offensive rebounding, tough, physical, crash the glass team. And for the final 12 minutes of this game, they just showed no either interest or ability to pull down defensive rebounds. Some of that comes down to, I'm sure you guys have talked about it quite a bit, the decision to play Joel Embiid the entire second half ultimately decided this game. And I think you could certainly make the argument for why they did it. Brunson goes to the locker room. They've been getting killed in all these minutes without Joel the whole series. This is your opportunity. Hey, go on a little run here, pad the lead a little bit. You don't know if or when Brunson's coming back. They got played to a standstill by the Knicks without Brunson, with Joel on the floor in those minutes. So you took a gamble and you rolled snake eyes, and everything else flowed from there because I thought it was clear Joel had no legs, no gas the rest of that quarter, and everything that went wrong was basically a product of that.
So what do you guys think? Biggest issue on offense in the fourth quarter? I think they finished with 16 points. Do you think it is just that Joel was gassed? I mean, I thought we saw him standing in the corner on a lot of those possessions. What do you guys think?
No, Joe was on the wings or in the corner for a good chunk of those possessions. He wasn't even really being able to use his gravity as a screener in any kind of meaningful way to get Maxey going. And then Maxey looked passive at times. Everybody else was passing up open shots. It was a comedy of problems that doomed them. And then, you had the 5 minutes where they didn't score. They also gave up, give or take, 1 million offensive rebounds there in that fourth quarter. I think it was... What was the stat Haralabob had where in the 32 possessions that, they just got worked on the glass. And you were looking at there, Hartenstein picked up his 5th foul. You had a couple-minute stretch there without Brunson on the floor. And I think you had the lead still at that time. You're like, all right, they're in a pretty good spot. But when Joel Embiid is nowhere near looking like Joel Embiid, and this is going back to the decision to play him the entire 24, you have to, the reason that you need Joel Embiid to look like Joel Embiid. And for much of the fourth quarter in that game, he didn't look anywhere near it. There are some superstars where you can be like, all right, you're going to play the entire 24 in the second half. Joel Embiid had never done it before tonight in his career. And there's a reason for that, because when you start, there's diminishing returns. The more and more you ask of him down the stretch like that, he needs that 4-minute blow. He needs that after 40 or so minutes, you just get much less out of Joel Embiid. I was pretty stunned that they went the way that they did. I understand the reasoning why. You brought up the Paul Reed plus-minus on the series. What is it, -38? That's not really fair to Paul, because Paul is the only player on the team who never plays alongside Joel Embiid. That's really a reflection of how this team looks without Joel Embiid on the floor. They've been consistently burned each and every game without Embiid on the court. But that is mostly because we can go down to Tobias Harris. We can go down not getting enough from your bench. I think they had 1 point entering in the fourth quarter, and you had an off Maxey night, and they just felt like they couldn't buy even 4 minutes without Joel Embiid on the floor, and that's a serious, serious problem. There's really no team in the league that can consistently do that. Or you can't even the Nuggets can buy 4 minutes without Jokic on the floor, and he is the biggest part of an offense in the NBA. It's just astonishing that we're sitting here talking about this for like the 8th straight year. They need to be able to buy 4 minutes at a time without Joel Embiid on the floor. They just can't do it. It's infuriating.
And Derek, as you bring up the Maxey piece of him just having an off night in a low-scoring game like this one, where they only score 92 points, what did you see out there this afternoon that caused him to shoot so poorly from the field and just seem, at least to me from back here at Wicked Wolf, where he just did not seem himself, where he normally dictates things, and they allowed the defense, in a sense, dictate how he was going to play against them?
So we'll get to Derek's side of it here for sure. For me, I thought it was a multitude of things, right? Like I do think Deuce McBride did a pretty good job on him, walling him off at times, making him work harder for shots. Those bench minutes where we're talking about all kinds of people, right? Like Paul Reed is a big flashpoint, or Tobias Harris, but Tyrese has not been good enough offensively in those non-Joel minutes, right? Where you're playing backups and he gets some favorable matchups. Frankly, I think New York did a good job of defending him off the ball, using OG's length and size to deny him the ball. And so they're trying to get into actions where Tyrese is not bringing the ball up the floor, and then he never ends up touching it. And so you're getting shots from the likes of Oubre, Paul Reed, and some other guys. I think in the fourth quarter, in the second half, if you look at how we're just talking about Joel being in the corner or just kind of standing around on different possessions, Tyrese is going to have to either win in isolation or you're not winning at all if you're not bringing Joel up to screen, right? Because Joel, for most of this series and most of this season, Joel is the difference between Maxey being able to turn that corner, get to the rim, do all the things that we see him do, pull up for threes, or Maxey having to settle for tough step-back jumpers when he's on his own and in isolation. And so the compounding effect of Joel's fatigue is that all of Maxey's shots are more difficult. Frankly, some of it is also he's just missing shots, right? Like there was a problem with Joel getting doubled. They're using OG to defend Joel on the block, throwing him the ball, and then basically auto-doubling, at times triple teaming him. And Joel made some good decisions out of there. Certainly didn't play his best basketball, but make some good decisions. Ball gets to Tyrese or maybe swings another time, and guys are missing open shots. So I think it's a multitude of reasons, but that was one of the rare occasions where I do think Tyrese had a bit of a deer in the headlights look in the second half. Once he was in a bad groove there, he was not sure of himself, and I think it just cascaded the rest of the half.
The role players.
Eric, you got anything?
Discuss.
I was just going to say, and then there were so many miscommunications, whether it was the Embiid to Maxey, where Maxey went one way, Embiid thought he was going the other. The pass to Oubre, where it looked like it was a pretty good read, or at least a cut was there, and they just didn't connect on it. There were a lot of missed opportunities, missed shots. They shot like absolute garbage from the perimeter. That always makes the offense look worse down the stretch. And then when you compound that with the fact that you can't get a freaking rebound, I still like, as much as the offense was bad down the stretch, and it was bad, they played really good first shot defense against the Knicks there down the stretch. They played good enough defense to win, and they just couldn't get a freaking rebound. It was one of the more, I was more maddened by that than I was game one up in New York. I thought that was a worse rebounding performance down the stretch than what we saw in game one. And game one was the worst rebounding performance I've ever seen in person.
So what were they saying in the locker room? Any positivity after that one, or no, not really?
I don't know if it was positivity so much as like, well, look, people are counting us out now. We're the 7th seed. We're down 3-1, and you can play with a little bit of freedom if you could spin it that way. But aside from that, guys are getting asked questions about, Joel playing the whole second half, and they're just saying, well, because that's what it probably takes to win, or everyone's trying to win, and not a whole lot of answers beyond we need to play better. We need to do this. We need to stop New York from, pounding us on the glass. And look, they gave credit to New York, certainly. I think if there's any kind of splashy quote, it's that Joel was a little bit pissed off at the split of fans here today. He didn't go so far as to call out Sixers fans, but he was disappointed in the fact that this is supposed to be their home arena, and I don't even think it was like 50-50. I do think the Knicks contingent was smaller, but they were much, much louder all throughout the day. Obviously, in the end, in the fourth quarter, you get it because they're way outplaying the Sixers when it mattered. But most of the game, the Knicks fans they really kicked the ass of the Sixers fans, pretty sadly.
And even today, guys, after game 3, where Tom Thibodeau was so frustrated with he felt discrepancy in foul calls, it's pretty even this afternoon. 26 for the Knicks and 29 for the 76ers, and they were a +9 in makes, where the New York Knicks missed 9 free throws there. And you look at them, and you felt as that's playing out, and they have the advantage, and of course Joel Embiid a big part of that. But do you feel like with Tom Thibodeau, of course, voicing his displeasure after game 3 and the way this game was played, that his voice, of course, was heard and how things were officiated?
Sure. I mean, it never hurts to lobby the refs. That's why coaches do it. I don't think that was one of the bigger storylines of this game, though. I mean, you have Embiid and you have Brunson both grifting their way to double-digit free throws. And outside of that, I think teams pretty much got the free throws they deserve outside of that Kyle Lowry bullshit three-point foul to start off the game. One of the most incredible grifting plays I've ever seen. But outside of that, look, we can talk about individual calls, but did Thibodeau's comments maybe swing things a little bit? Maybe, but I think it's probably more that New York was the more aggressive team for most of the night, especially down the stretch. That tends to get rewarded with free throws.
Yeah, by the way, that Lowry moment, just maybe the all-time Kyle Lowry play, just completely ridiculous. If an opposing player had done what he did on the floor, I think Sixers fans would have stormed the court and tried to get him off the floor. That was outrageous.
My old colleague John Hollinger said he outflopped Brunson's flop. It was like pulling a full house after Brunson had 3 of a kind. So it was good.
Well, I'll give you credit first. You said it in the moment that you said he outflopped his flop.
Yeah, it was a good one. I don't got anything else.
Fellas, we really appreciate it. We'll be back tomorrow together at 2:30 as we try to make sense of a little bit more of what happened, where we try to preview what goes on in game number 5. Tough win and lose in game 4 at home, but Sixers need to figure things out to try to keep their season alive. Thanks, Kyle and Derek.
I just want to say one final thing here because I'm following along with the chat, and it's all about, Maxi's not good enough or Embiid's a choker, blah, blah, blah. No, this game was a game that I think really the defining point is you don't have a third reliable player. You're probably your third best player in a series is the fact that you have a 30-year-old point guard who was on the waiver wire a couple months ago, and because of that, you had to play Joel Embiid way too many minutes. I think I said 38. I meant 38 if I didn't say 38. But your third best player has been a 38-year-old point guard who you picked up off the waiver wire, and because of that, you feel like you have to play Joel Embiid 24 minutes straight down the stretch, and he had nothing left to give. This is Daryl Morey needs to really use the assets he has as a third star. That's what this is about. Were Joel Embiid and Tyrese Maxey good down the stretch? No, but I think that's directly because they just don't have the talent to overcome either one of those having an off night.
Oh, you must have missed the non-Tyrese Maxey, the Tyrese Maxey slander, and you missed the Paul Reed slander of him not being good enough as to why, of course, Embiid had to be on the floor.
But
and
even still, like building off of Derek's point, I mean, who was the third best player tonight? Kelly Oubre? Like, Kelly was pretty good. But you're talking about a guy on a minimum contract who we've ridden the roller coaster with all year. I don't know that it needs to be – I know Daryl will chase a star, right? Like, we're going to be talking about stars for up until July, right? But look at the contributions New York is getting in the series. Miles McBride has made a massive impact on this series. And he's a guy that at times has been, like, in and out of the rotation prior to the trades that New York made earlier this year. He was not some like, he's definitely going to be one of the dudes for this team when they make it to the playoffs. So, like, give credit to Josh Hart, give credit to Miles McBride. Their role players have showed up. The Sixers have gotten 0. And so when you get a subpar Tyrese Maxey game when you try to play Joel Embiid 24 consecutive minutes and he is not good in the final minutes of the game because he's got nothing left. It falls on the rest of these guys. You have a $40 million player who's basically just a passenger in the game and a bunch of other guys who couldn't hit shots. And that's the story right there.
All right, make sure everybody go and read allphly.com to check out the recaps and stories from both Kyle and Derek live from the arena. Allphly.com, the newsletter from Rich Hofmann right here to my right. Guys, we appreciate it. Get home safely. Try to enjoy the rest of your day. At least you get out of there with some sunlight and try to enjoy the rest of your day. At least you can do that.
Get home safe, fellas, and may I say choose chill to both of you. You need to choose chill after that game.
Absolutely. Thanks, man. Appreciate it. Thanks, Derek. Appreciate it. Thanks, guys. Kyle and Derek live from the arena here for our post game. We have anything stand out from anything that they said? Nothing really came out of the locker room that was unexpected.
The only thing that I wanted to add was to the point that I guess Embiid made. Again, we didn't hear that his quote live about the Knicks fans. It was very loud. It probably wasn't 50-50, but when a road fan base takes over an arena or a field, like even if it's 20%, 30%, they are almost always much louder. I have seen that in person. The game that sticks out to me that I covered, the Eagles played the Chargers at that little soccer stadium out in LA before they moved into
the new building.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And look, that was probably close to 50-50, but again, they were 100% louder. We have seen that with the Eagles. So unfortunately, I don't think any other fan base would do that to the Sixers, but the Knicks fan base is huge. They're like starving for a winner, and unfortunately they are from like an hour and a half to 2 hours up the road. So it's not certainly an easy trip on a Sunday afternoon.
Yep. You could hear it through the television.
Yes, you could.
When the baskets were scored by New York, you could hear it. You could absolutely hear it. And that's always how it's been with them. Regular season.
Oh yeah,
they travel really well.
They haven't taken over the arena like that, but when they were bad in those early Embiid Simmons years, and the Sixers would beat them, they still showed up for the regular season games. They always have. Mm-hmm. Similar to the Mets showing up at CBP.
Yep. All right, let's get to a couple of super chats here. Mitchell Cruz. As a Knicks fan, as a Knicks and basketball fan, I love your content. We thank you, Mitch. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Mitch.
Yeah, we appreciate that. Not happy about how things are going with your team. And isn't that the funny thing? I was talking to someone the other day, and they were speaking about off the air and all. They were talking about how the Knicks and you're annoyed by their players. You're annoyed by their players because it's happening to you. If they were on your team, you would love it because they're doing the things that we are now basing our show around of why the Sixers are right now down 3-1 and lost this basketball game.
Absolutely. I have a ton of respect for those guys. The only thing they've done that has annoyed me all series is Tibbs complaining about Jalen Brunson's whistle. But in general...
Hey, guess what? Nick Nurse complains about Joel Embiid's whistle.
Yeah, maybe not quite as shamelessly as Tibbs. But, okay, regardless, that's like 3% of the overall product. Tibbs has got those guys playing really hard. I really do respect those guys. They play good brand of hoops.
Yep. And by the way, people, if you like those guys when they were Villanova Wildcats, don't hate them now just because they're in the New York Knicks uniform. Yes, and hate them now in the series, but you still like those guys. They just happen to be doing it to your team right now where Jalen puts up 47 in this one. Bernard McCoy, don't agree with the Maxey take. One thing Doc has over Nick Nurse is he made Maxey drive. Wouldn't be in this position if we had Siakam or DeRozan.
Well, again, that comes back to Daryl Morey thinks he can do better than that this offseason. We will see.
We'll have a lot of that conversation, too.
Yeah, we're not there yet. They still got to lose another game.
A lot of Daryl Morey blame in the chat today, even Super Chats, but also in the regular chat.
Yeah. So, I guess the way I would close this is like, the Sixers, they just got out-toughed in this game. And I think they have the ability to climb back in the series. I think it's going to be really freaking hard, considering every game is super close. And for them to have zero margin for error now because of what happened at the end of Game 2 and this game as well. We'll see. But I like, if the Sixers, show me something, like come back in Game 5. What's that, Tuesday night?
Tuesday night.
And like, let's see a little bit of toughness. Like, let's see you play like your season is actually on the line. If the Knicks in that game, if they just make a bunch of threes, if it's a Josh Hart is on fire type of game, all right, and you lose that way, I mean, I'm sure that the post-game pod will be lively regardless if it's an L. But I think we can probably stomach that a little more. Don't lose this way again. Like, I know they are a really talented offensive rebounding team. Enough.
So how do you think now we'll be together on Tuesday night, but how do you think this one for you right now, how do you think that one has to play out for you? We'll have an opportunity to talk about it a little bit more, but just your instant reaction, Game 5. Do you think they have enough in them to respond and force a Game 6?
I think it's going to be close because every game in this series has been close. Do they have enough to learn from their lesson? They're definitely going to go to Precious against Joel again. They're not going to be afraid to put OG and OG on Joel, Precious technically at the 5, even though he's not guarding him. By the way, part of the reason Kelly Oubre had a bunch of points was he had a huge mismatch with Precious Achiuwa on him. You probably have to press that button harder or get more out of it because he should really not be able to guard him. I think the game's going to be close, but I have no idea if they're going to win. And frankly, if this series is any indication, they're at least 0 for 2. Game 1 was kind of close at the end. They're 0 for 3 on those games. So maybe, at some point the bounces are going to go their way, but they have to make the bounces go their way. Go grab a damn rebound.
Yep. My buddy 215 Philly says, Devon, what are you talking about? I hate those guys now.
That's fair, too. I mean,
it's fair. Of course, in the moment.
I get it.
You're going to hate them because they're knocking out your team and they're playing harder and they're doing the stuff that they're doing.
That's fandom.
That's fandom.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's all.
Absolutely. I get it.
Yeah. I just, my thing is always, it's fandom. They're crushing your team right now in the series. In the offseason, you wanted Dante DiVincenzo. At the draft, of course, why didn't you draft Jalen Brunson? That's my point. They're the same guys.
Yeah.
They just happen to be wearing your opponent, your divisional opponent, and crushing you right now. So I get that part. That's why I said it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't like it that this is the second out of 3 seasons where we're going to be talking about team toughness. Like, that's why they signed PJ Tucker, which was overall probably not a great signing. But again, I think that's like a recurring theme where it's like, all right.
Yeah.
Or is this going to be, you got to get some dogs in the offseason again?
Well, your dogs that you got in the offseason were Patrick Beverly and Marcus Morris in the trade, right? You got those guys and you traded them. 215 said, I really hate him now. But that's where a lot of people are going to point to the toughness that you had. But you also say what you want about Kelly Oubre. Is that a level of toughness that you want? But you get toughness in a certain way, but then you have other stuff where even here, King John 1985 is calling Kelly Oubre soft. I think he's soft.
I don't think he's soft.
I don't think he's soft at all. I think he may be a little out of control at times.
Totally.
And decision-making isn't there like you need it to be, but he's not soft.
No.
Nah, now if you want to say weak mentally when it comes to the things that need to be done in the moment, but he's not soft. He's a tough player out there on the floor. This was not fun. We'll be back tomorrow at 2:30. Rich and I will be together for we have a watch-along once again. How about that? A watch-along and an elimination game against the New York Knicks. You better win, or that one is going to be brutal to have to do. And our watch-along, we'll tell you more about that tomorrow. But if you've been there for our watch-alongs before, you know how they go. We'll talk about that a little bit more tomorrow. Derek and Kai will be back on the road in New York for game number 5 at the Garden. But a lot of ticked-off Sixer fans, as you should be. We understand it. We certainly do. And we appreciate everybody hanging out with us here on this Sunday afternoon, not only for our pregame coverage, but hanging out with us here at Wicked Wolf. We had a bunch of people that came through to hang out with us, and just a couple of people that I remember off the top of my head. A few of our diehards, Val and her sister Lynette. We appreciate Val and Lynette coming through. And if you don't know Val is Val hosts in our chat, always checking in, always supporting. Tim, who has been out to many of our events, also in our live shows. Tim and his wife came through. We appreciate them. Tim came over to say goodbye. You saw it on his face that he was distraught. He was done. He was like, I'm out of here. Have a great show. We're leaving. So everybody else that came by and participated in our raffle as we gave away hats, T-shirts, PHLY apparel, hats, T-shirts, some Sixers things. And this, as always, when we get to have these pregame shows presented by our great friends from Coors Light. Kyle said it at the end. Everybody go choose chill, because after a loss like this one, with so much day left in you, you can't even just go to sleep. You got to stay up now. It's 4 o'clock in the 5 o'clock in the early part of the evening. You gotta stay up now, and you got to deal with this one. You can go watch the other games, maybe watch the Phillies to try to take your mind off it. But we again presented today by Coors Light. Visit CoorsLight.com/PHLY basketball to get Coors Light delivered, or find a store near you. A lot of people to thank. As always, we do not have the bell on site. It's back at the office. We'll have it for you tomorrow, certainly, as we get ready for game number 5. We got to thank a lot of people. You got to start with the enemies first. So we were yelling at each other. So we got to start with our enemies first, even though they're not enemies. It's all love all the time when we bicker back and forth. Remo K. What up, Remo? We appreciate that. My other guy that I was having the back and forth with, I forget the name that I tagged him. You know who you are, as we were yelling at each other about Paul Reed. Appreciate you as always. We'll have some fun when they win the next game, and we'll talk about how good Paul Reed was. Or maybe I'll agree with you and say Paul Reed had some bad minutes out there on the floor. Money Marr, Coach Lowell Ricketts. What up, Coach? We also had the 2-minute warning, Al, in there. What up, Al? Barbara, Carol, so many people. Juan, talking about Knicks in our chat. We don't like it. We don't like that at all. Phi Chi in the chat. Cannoli, Dan Taylor, Ash Monroe. Who else did we have in here? Bleeding Green Betty, Joe, Juan Suarez, our super chats. Bernard McCoy. Who else did we have in here on our super chats? Let me go, because Julie was nice enough to send them all here with us. Mitchell Cruz, Bernard, we mentioned there. Furious in the super chat. As cocky as Morey is, what does he have to show for it? We missed that one a little bit earlier. As cocky as he is, though, what does he have to show for it? No championships.
Nothing yet.
One Western Conference final, and that's his resume. Front-running fan base, MBDBDBF in the super chat as well. We thank everybody for hanging out with us. We appreciate our great friends here at Wicked Wolf, not only for us tonight, but also for the draft coverage that you are along with for the Eagles with Bo.
Great food.
And Zach, so we appreciate them. We appreciate John helping us out here. He has been tremendous. Great food, and we hope to be back soon again. We got to get some wins, though, when we're here.
Yeah.
Lost the Super Bowl here.
Been some L's.
I mean, the playoff game against Tampa here, some L's here. So we got to fix that problem. And we also have to thank Julia for stepping in after all of the work that she did with the coverage of the draft. Mm-hmm. She said, I'm getting out of the bed anyway. And I'm coming in for some Sixers basketball on this Sunday afternoon. So, Julia, thank you. And, of course, Bree had the day off. So thank you, Julia, for helping us out. And JP, making sure everything is smooth here with all the people that were coming over to wanting to be a part and ask questions about certain things. JP, thank you so much. We'll be back tomorrow at 2:30 for show 1 of the week as we get ready for game number 5 on Tuesday. Rich and I will be back together on Tuesday for the watch along. As always, it's fun, man. Wish this was a better result.
Yeah, well, it's not our fault.
No, it's not. But we had fun talking it out during the game.
Sure, man.
For Rich, for Kyle and Derek live at the arena, I'm Devon. We'll talk to you tomorrow at 2:30 right here on PHLY Sixers.
We all silly like the mayor.